The GeForce Now problem. It is real. And it's the danger of the GeForce Now platform and to an extent the xCloud model as it pertains to cloud gaming. Let's get into it. Before we get started, if you're interested in analysis, news, and reviews about Google Stadia from yours truly, don't forget to get subscribed and turn the bell notifications on so you stay up to date when our new videos go live. Every week, I'm going to do my best, assuming there are no big news items to really go over, to take a day out of the week to discuss the competition to Stadia and why things involving them is important to the platform. A couple weeks ago, we got word that Google and Activision and Blizzard entered into a lucrative broadcasting deal for YouTube to host all esports tournaments held by Activision and Blizzard. This pertains to the Overwatch League and Call of Duty esports tournaments in particular, and this was a huge get, and the reported financial investment on Google's part heavily suggested that perhaps Stadia was or is involved. Now, one hand of Google doesn't necessarily feed the other, but there's no such thing as coincidences. Okay, of course there actually are, but this deal makes too much sense to include Stadia in some way. But that's not the focal point of this discussion today, but I needed to preface the thesis of this video with that deal that Google struck, because not long after GeForce Now launched and Activision Blizzard pulled their games from the GeForce Now service. This was a huge blow considering the titles that fall under the Activision Blizzard umbrella, and the appeal of GeForce Now is to play these graphically heavy games like a Call of Duty, or data heavy games like an Overwatch or World of Warcraft, and not have to worry about the workload their PCs would require to run these games. In fact, if licensing weren't a thing, GeForce Now could be the end-all be-all. Having the ability to play every PC game out there that you own through a cloud is extremely appealing, and I'm not going to lie, that sounds incredibly awesome. When I did my top 10 games I wanted to see on Stadia in 2020 and cited our Steam library as my number one. Even though I knew even at that time that this was not a possibility, but rather a pipe dream, and for GeForce Now, this is somewhat of a reality in what I call the GeForce Now problem. Because within the last couple of days, Bethesda, the maker of games such as Doom, The Elder Scrolls, and Fallout, pulled support from GeForce Now. And it's not like Activision, Blizzard, and Bethesda are the only companies to pull their library from the GeForce Now service, because Capcom, Konami, Rockstar, and Square Enix have also pulled support from GeForce Now since they left the beta. Xbox and Game Pass has dealt with this previously, but the expectation was there for this service. And the way Game Pass is handled, it's a subscription service much like Netflix is, in which they aren't games you own, but games that Xbox license out for monthly subscribers. But we don't know the entire extent of what xCloud is going to offer to the world. Will it be somewhat of a GeForce Now clone in which it will support games you purchase, but only from participating publishers? Or will it err closer to the side of what Stadia offers, since Xbox will likely be using the Xbox marketplace to sell these titles? To be fair as well, xCloud may be waiting and seeing what it will be allowed to offer. After seeing the outcry from GeForce Now losing its support, one would think that Microsoft is not interested in that same thing happening to them. Xbox right now is in the business of being as consumer friendly as possible lately. After the botched launch and never being able to regain the lead in the marketplace that it had in the prior generation with the 360, Xbox is looking to be a consumer first brand going forward. Providing complete backwards compatibility from its entire history is one of the downright coolest things I have seen from a video game company ever. Respecting the collection people have built over the last 20 years is a solid move on their part, and if they nail xCloud, Microsoft could be fighting a war on two fronts and winning. But Game Pass is the set of cards that are being tipped right now in what Microsoft may be dealing with in the near future. And it may be close to what GeForce Now has. The popular belief in why companies like Bethesda and Activision are against what GeForce Now does post-beta is the fact that these companies aren't getting any financial restitution, or what they believe to be restitution, for what GeForce Now offers. GeForce Now is making money off of letting its users use other companies' products. Think of it this way. It's as if I uploaded my entire movie library and ran it the same exact way GFN does. Should I expect to profit off people watching the Avengers, or wouldn't Disney want a cut of that? On one hand of the spectrum, publications will call this greed on the part of companies like Bethesda, or anti-consumerism is the word that is floated around very often, not having their customers in mind. After all, if someone has a potato PC and wants to play Elder Scrolls Online at the best possible settings and buys the game so they can play it on GeForce Now, shouldn't that make Bethesda happy? And on the other end, pretend you are Bethesda. Sure, you're happy someone is playing your game and you're appreciative of the sale. but now a company is making money off your hard work and on a subscription-based model after they bought your game. If anything, this will force the hand of these publishers to either get on board with a platform like Stadia or begin development of their own cloud gaming service. I dread the idea of us going into a streaming war much like what we see with Hulu and Netflix and Amazon Prime, where all of our favorite shows are just split across 3 different services. I would hate to have to go to EA streaming service to play Madden or NHL, and then go to Stadia to play Tomb Raider games, and then go over to Capcom if I'm in a Street Fighter mood. Talk about anti-consumerism. And the problem here isn't cloud gaming. It really never has been to begin with. The problem is the financial aspect here and the how and where the money is actually going. See, I don't blame Activision, Blizzard, Bethesda, Konami, or anyone else wanting to pull games from GeForce Now, and possibly xCloud depending on the service road they decide to venture down. The GeForce Now pricing structure is simply too low in my opinion for publishers and developers to get the cut they feel they deserve, and for NVIDIA to get the money they need to make it a profitable venture. I've said this before that GeForce Now is a perfect ancillary service to have. It's not a secret that the player base on Stadia is less than ideal currently, but it's essentially behind a paywall that frankly, well, shouldn't be there still. That's another topic for another day. So when I have time and I really want to go nuts in some Rumble and I don't feel like waiting in Destiny 2, I may jump into GeForce Now for an hour and have some quick fun there. I am not a fan of the overall model that GeForce Now is providing on the free side of things, but from a business perspective, I not only understand it, but simply respect it. I can't imagine the cost behind hosting a cloud-based service such as GeForce Now, and I simply don't have enough time in the week to even consider subscribing to GeForce Now at the moment to avoid those 1-hour queues, but they are dealing with a problem that will need to be rectified sooner than later. Losing these publishers and the huge IPs that come with them is not a good look going forward. On the bright side, for fans of GeForce Now, CD Projekt Red recently came out and said that Cyberpunk 2077 will be available on GeForce Now day 1. This is a great move and a big win for GeForce Now. CD Projekt Red also announced that buying Cyberpunk on the Xbox One means you own it on the Xbox Series X. This is similar to the way cross-buy used to work in the PlayStation ecosystem of consoles with the Vita and the PlayStation 4. This is super pro-consumerism and something I hope to see more of going forward. Admittedly, this aspect isn't too cloud gaming centric, but it was a move in the gaming industry that I thought was worth applauding. And, well, I know this is asking for something that's more than likely not going to happen anytime soon, but I hope to read about one day in some sort of biography of sorts all the closed-door meetings when it comes to all the licensing aspects and the developmental process of these services. This is such a new and uncharted territory that it is incredibly interesting to me in an inside baseball sort of way. How GeForce Now plans to rebound from these big losses and move their service into the summer, especially against Stadia, which will have its worldwide launch by then, and the console manufacturers will start heating up with E3 coming up and everything surrounding it, and their big plans for the next generation coming this holiday season. But I'm very curious to hear what you guys think about GeForce Now's recent happenings when it comes to their service losing publisher support. I'm also curious on what challenges you think xCloud will face come its release. Let me know all your thoughts down below. And of course, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up as it will help more people find it just like you did. And as I've mentioned before, we do offer channel memberships here on the channel, and the big perk here is when you subscribe, you get immediate access to these videos as soon as they are processed. My videos launch around 7 a.m. Central Standard Time every morning, and you'll usually get it the afternoon or night before for that instant gratification. And I'll be in plenty of places the next couple of weeks outside of Club Stadia here, as I mentioned in yesterday's video. I'll be over on Stadia Talks channel at 8:15 p.m. Central Standard Time tomorrow streaming Spitlings. Myself and a couple other creators, including Eddie of Stadia Player 1, Generation Stadia, and Raph Gaming, and possibly more. The stream will be over on Chase's channel at Stadia Talk, so that will be the place to be. Expect my Keep It or Refund It review on Spitlings either tomorrow morning or Thursday morning. I fully expect pro games to be announced later today for March, so I have a feeling that may make up the bulk of our video for Wednesday. And once again, I will be on the This Week on Stadia podcast Saturday morning at about 10 a.m. over on Stadia Talk, filling in for Eddie of Stadia Player 1. We'll be talking all the latest news regarding Stadia, which will likely include those pro games that we already mentioned, Spitlings and how that's been going. And of course, the gameplay reveal Baldur's Gate 3, on which Stadia will be hosting on their YouTube page Thursday. I believe that's around 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, so definitely be ready to check that out. And you're going to be getting a lot of coverage, I know, over on the Stadia Talk channel, so stay tuned for that, and we'll definitely be talking about it on Saturday morning. And there may be something else possibly in the works for me next week in terms of a collaboration, so stay tuned here and on Twitter at Club Stadia TV for more details regarding that. But until next time, thank you and party on.